This video will demonstrate how to analyze the method sections of a journal article. The article that we will be analyzing is called Self-Affirmation Activates Brain Systems Associated with Self-Related Processing and Reward and is Reinforced by Future Orientation. You can find the article linked in the description below. The method section of any article is going to be explaining exactly how they did what they did, using the participants that they used, overall the structure, the timeline, all the stuff that they actually went into making this research happen. It's not showing any of the results. It's just showing how they created the research. The method section is mostly important for replication. If you ever want to do another research that's based on this research question, if you read this article and it gives you another question, you have to be able to use their method section to make your own research project, your own research structure. And so there's going to be a lot of details within the method section and calling on a lot of other research projects that were done even before this paper in order to be able to like validate and add more foundation to, yes, we know what we're doing. Other people have been able to prove stuff in the past. So we're able to go with what they've proven in the past and go on the same way and prove other things, hopefully in the future. So this methods, they talk about the number of the participants. There were only 67. The N was 67 and the number of participants was 67. So the first thing that I would ask myself is, okay, if there were only 67 people who participated, how generalizable is this? Were there actually enough types of people represented for me to be able to say that, oh, because this worked in this population, it's going to work in another type of population based on similarities they have? If they don't have any similarities, can I actually assume or infer anything based on this paper at all? I don't know what this affirmed and self-affirmed thing is, but it's talking about their affirmation theory. These numbers don't add up to 67, and I don't feel like figuring out why. So I just, whatever. Okay, whatever. And then it's saying they're all adults between 18 and 64. 41 of the 67 are females. So again, like more than 2/3 are women. There's going to be a lot of questions for me about whether or not I can say anything based on this research when the research study was so limited. 41 people were females. 44 of the 67 were also white. I don't really know if I can make any assumptions. All of these others are like a significant smaller proportion compared to the number of white people who are in this study. So I don't know if I can assume anything about an Asian demographic or about a Hispanic demographic. And honestly, to a certain extent, even to the Black demographic based on this study being so heavily white. They recruited health messages, sedentary adults. So sedentary, all participants were sedentary. So now it's bringing in a whole lot of other things that weren't necessarily talked about previously about like sedentary based on like the amount of activity they're doing. And like maybe it's talking about lifestyle changes or something like that. I don't know. But they're adding in the fact that these people had to be sedentary. And then it defines what sedentary actually means. And then it also decides because of that, their BMI, all of the other sedentary things, they're going to be overweight. So these people were predominantly white, predominantly female, and predominantly overweight, and all had to be sedentary. Then it also goes on to talk about other little things that like each participant was. A lot of times these other little things, other research has shown that that one thing they didn't control for may have led to other outcomes, or they can't conclude what they wanted to conclude because of this one confounding factor. And so these are things that end up being controlled for in future studies. So participants were right-handed. I'm going to ask myself, why would it matter if participants are right-handed versus left-handed is what I'm assuming is like the versus. And I know like right-handed versus left-handed, this whole thing is about the brain. The brain is going to work differently if you're right-handed versus if you're left-handed, just based on like how neurons are wired and stuff. And so maybe just to make all of the no, all of these brains are right-handed brains. None of these are left-handed brains. Just add to more have everybody on the same page about what's being said. Did not suffer from claustrophobia. Well, the people all have to be in an MRI, and an MRI is a machine that's like a little tube with a huge magnet around it and makes a lot of noise. So if you're claustrophobic, I can't imagine you're going to sit well for an MRI. That's what I would anticipate is why the claustrophobia. Psychoactive medications, I would anticipate that if you're taking a medication that's specifically psychoactive, that may impact how your brain's going to be functioning already. And so you may have skewed the results. Normal or corrected to normal vision. Again, vision goes back to your brain and how your brain's functioning. And so you need to have like a standard on how people are being able to see. Did not have metal in their bodies contributed for an MRI. Good idea on that one. You don't want somebody who has metal to get in a huge machine for magnetic resonance, where it's literally a huge magnet. They're going to like, it's not going to go well. So yes, you have to make sure that people can actually undergo an MRI, going back to also the claustrophobia situation. So then they had a 3-part study, figure 1. So figure 1 is going to probably be very helpful for me in figuring out how this study occurred in the first place. Baseline, they ranked a list of personal values, completed self-report questionnaires, fitted an accelerometer, measure physical activity behavior. Okay, so they had 3 different things. They ranked, they had a self-reported questionnaires, and then they got an accelerometer. And then a week passed, they got an fMRI, and they also went the self-affirmation or the control under the fMRI. They saw potentially threatening messages that encouraged physical activity. And then the success of the affirmation manipulation, so whether or not they got that self-affirmation or not, was validated. Validated means compared to like something else. So they decided, yes, this was actually true based on objectively measured physical activity, sedentary change attributable to self-affirmation and subsequent. Okay, so changes in how much they're moving and or not moving in the following month is how they are seeing if the affirmations worked. Cool. Additional details can be found in this. So it sounds like somebody else has already done this research and they're just kind of altering a little bit. However, the neural processes with the actual task. So they're adding in the fMRI part has not been assessed before. They've only done the rest of this. So somebody else, it sounds like, has done the other timeline part. They just didn't add in this fMRI in the middle. So, okay, looking at this figure, baseline appointment. So people are going to rank their things. They're going to get the accelerometer figured out, and they're also going to get the baseline accelerometer after a week. The week is just going to give whatever is their normal accelerometer. No changes have occurred, just normally what they would be, how they would be moving. And then after that week, they're going to get their actual fMRI, the task. So they're going to get the affirmations, whether they're going to be the control group, not get the affirmations, or in the experimental group, get the affirmations. And then they're also going to have the task of the negative health messages that were after they get those tasks. And see, they're going to get those negative health messages after they have received the affirmations and see how for 4 weeks they're going to get accelerometer data and see how much there are changes in their sedentary behavior, if any. Cool. So then now it looks like it's going to detail in more each of these things. So the self-affirmation task itself. So they were ranking a list of things according to how important. These were creativity, relations, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they were using the self-affirmation, affirm condition, top rank value, blah, blah. I don't know what that means. If I feel like I would like to recreate this research project, I will go and figure out what all those means. But this I know is just to help somebody else replicate this. It's not necessarily for my interpretation. So I'm just taking note that there are a bunch of details mentioned here if I need to come back later at all. Many approaches to self-affirmation, 2 highly prominent, okay, self-affirmation tasks, blah, 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 similarly scales, blah, blah, blah. As an Ellie widely used manipulations, okay, so other people who've done stuff, some differences, so blah, blah, using affirmation distribution, table 1. Cool. Substantial can overlap, whatever. So now table 1 is the rankings, and I see how often people ranked things. Friends _ family, friends and family was 33. People called it the highest. Nobody said it was the lowest. whereas 20 people said religion was the lowest, 34 people said politics was the lowest. So it seems like friends and family and politics are like the highest and lowest. And then if you go back to the group frequency and the affirmed group versus the control group, the affirmed group, it seems like most people say friends and family is the high. I don't know what this means. And if I feel like figuring it out, that's what the results section is for, not the methods. The methods is just teaching me how to recreate this as its own thing. Save time, standardized instruction, participants task instructions directly prior to the task, test preparation, think structural scan, think about, well, okay. Think about when the experiments occurred, think about once they come up with scenarios relevant, they computed, so okay. Test interaction. So they were basically required to think about something that was in the past, to think about something in this future. And based on their value relevance, and then figure out if they had changes in how much they moved later. They represented the same control, example statements, cool examples. A time, cool examples. As many examples. 10 scenarios. Okay. 40 blocks. So, okay, that's all just telling me exactly how this was structured in detail. Validation of fMRI following randomly assigned blah, blah, blah. So self-information, health messages, success, validation, blah, 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 blah. And this is like the validation, health messaging tasks, accelerometer. So the accelerometer, it sounds like, was like seeing how much they're moving, how quickly they're moving, how often they're moving, and they're getting the details of that from something that they were attached to, it sounds like. And this is like triaxial. I can all look into those details if I would like to recreate this. I'm just being aware that this is existing for those who would like to recreate. Imaging, Tesla, GMR scanner, whatever. The slice thickness, blah, 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 all of this, T1, in plane T1, the high resolution T1, T2, all of that stuff is MRI details. I don't know very much about MRI details, but if I was going to create this research paper, I would probably partner with somebody who knows more about research, about MRIs and how they work, and they would be able to explain this to me much better. I don't need to understand all of this to be able to analyze this article. Just taking notes that that's MRI details. Okay, supplementary materials, data modeled, doable, blah, 4 trial types modeled, past, okay. Fixation trials not modeled constitute an implicit baseline. Cool. So they talk about the structure. Now ROI, the ROI, I don't remember. ROI, I think, is regions of interest, but I remember that it was described in the introduction. So I can always just scroll back up to the introduction and see where ROI is mentioned. And yep, reward regions of interest. So regions of interest is ROIs. So now I'm going to just go back to where I saw ROIs in the methods. Oh, okay, here it is. Test the balance. We first conducted a priority region of interest analyses. Okay, so this is talking about the actual MRI. Where in the brain is this working? Blah, 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 blah. Investigate neural processes, value greater than everyday scenarios. K35. Okay, I can, if I need to, Monte Carlo simulation using AlphaSim. Again, if I would like to do this research paper, I can go research all those things. I don't need to. I'm just taking notes that that's what was happening. In order to maintain type 1, type 2 error risks. Okay, so there's a bunch of errors they're trying to also control for, and that's how the entire research was done. The next section being the results.